Well, good morning, everyone. As we watch the sun rise here across the United States today, one of the big features that I was watching a lot yesterday is this very tightly wound low that's running across the northern tier of the United States, right along the U.S.-Canada border. And one of the big things we were watching is if I just take you back overnight, so this is going backward in time, look at how strong the winds were around that low. So watch right up here. Ready? As we play this through, I mean, to see that tight of a low at this point in July, it's actually kind of quite rare. Usually our low pressure systems are much weaker in the summer. But the strong winds, you can probably see it. Look at all the smoke coming out of this wildfire in parts of Idaho ripping through here. And then also there was one down here in the Snake River Valley. Come over to parts of Texas. We were watching for some large wildfires into this region as well. And this produced severe storms that hit parts of this section of Montana, North Dakota, and Saskatchewan, producing some hail and some strong straight line winds. We also saw some damaging storms that stretched along this weak frontal boundary last night. You're looking at some infrared imagery here. Early this morning, storms are still popping down here from Mississippi over toward Alabama and Georgia. But as we look forward in this forecast, the main headlines still center around the excessive heat that's in the southern plains. So heat watches and warnings. This is an excessive heat warning, but we do have stronger winds today stretching throughout the plain. So there's red flag warnings in Texas. They're here in parts of Nebraska, Wyoming, and this is all wind advisory and high wind warning. But the most important thing that I'm really kind of honing in on here was some of the trends we saw in the models yesterday and now happening in the early morning runs today. And what I'm really specifically talking about is this. You're going to see in the forecast the pattern kind of favoring flow like this. In other words, our troughs are coming out of the Bering Sea in Alaska. They're moving through the Canadian prairie and curling around lows that have been in place over the Hudson Bay. And that's allowed the ridge that's been here to kind of shift farther to the west. We may start to see a bit of blocking happening. First time since, going back about 100 days, I've actually seen blocking showing up in the Pacific as we go forward in this pattern. And I want you to see it. Ready? So this is going through the weekend into early next week right here. And now we start to see it. Notice that large ridge that's forming here, broad troughs across the United States, wrapping into this Hudson Bay type low situation here. And what this is doing is this is really changing the precipitation pattern as we go out into the very end of July and the start of August. And so does the ridge stay in place here? It probably does. Does that give us better northwest flow through here? It does. And there's this subtropical ridge that's sitting in place here, and we're going to end up getting moisture that kind of funnels around the back side of this. So the net effect of what I just showed you is to give you this, and I want you to take a look at this graphic. It's in the report this morning. Just click on it and have a close look. But this next few days through the end of this week, we do have this Canadian system rolling through, curling up into the Hudson Bay. Late this week, I'm talking Friday into Saturday, we're going to see some storms rolling through here, but south of that, very hot and dry. We still have our normal diurnal storms down here in the southeast. But it's this July 24 to August 3rd pattern shift that I've really been trying to just digest and understand because the models are showing something that we've not seen in a while, and that's a breakdown of the trough off the northwest. So the ridge is shifting toward it. The ocean temperatures are very warm in the North Pacific, and that's leading toward this broader trough. And the models will take that trough and show this wide signal of above average precipitation. Now, it won't verify perfectly that everybody in here is going to see above average rainfall. It's just a signal in the model. We're going to have to keep a very close eye on what this means. Because even in the ensembles, we did see, a trend toward higher probabilities of getting more than an inch of rain here when you stretch this out over the next 10 days, which takes us to the 29th. So what are we watching though before that gets here? It's a pretty volatile temperature pattern north, but just hot in the plains. And we've kind of been covering this for a while. There's Tuesday's highs getting into Wednesday, going out to Thursday. 97 in Iowa, 103 in Nebraska, 99 just outside of St. Louis. Very, very hot temperatures. And Texas doesn't get a break from this at all. So that's this Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. See the cooler shot coming through the northern plains. But notice through this whole presentation, I didn't talk much about the Northwest, but this time period that we're coming up to here is going to see the first kind of extended warm time period in the Northwest to finish the second half of the month of July. And therefore, because of all that heat, we'll see evaporation rates well in excess of 3 inches for bare soil down here in this part of the plains. And we're talking about an inch to an inch and a half with the heat that's coming in here into the central part of the United States, and that extends up into parts of Montana. Now, these temperatures over the next 5 days, watch the sliding window here. That gets us through the end of this week and the start of the weekend. And as we go into next week, this gets us all the way out to, this would be next Monday through next Friday. The substantial change in the pattern is this. And we need to see more model runs to see this verified. But it's in the ensembles, it's in the European, it's in the GFS. And that's a significant cool down for the Canadian Prairie, parts of it, and then the Northern Plains and Upper Midwest. But what we notice is that that change in the flow of the Pacific jet is lending toward more confidence in the buildup of heat in the west. And so I'm going to have to watch this all very carefully. So let's just distill this down and talk precip, and we'll finish this one up. This is the next 7 days by the WPC. So you got the weekend storms coming in here, the diurnal storms in the southeast, excuse me, in the monsoon. But let me show you when this happens, okay? You can see this low that's today cutting across the U.S.-Canada border, going over the Great Lakes by Wednesday and Thursday, and then curling into the Hudson Low. There's that stalled out frontal boundary. Now going into this weekend, see there Friday into Saturday, the back side of that starts to initiate storms. We're going to have to watch where these storms come through because they could push through parts of the upper Midwest, the western Corn Belt, and that front lingers into early next week. And we need this to verify, need to get that moisture right back into this corridor. But you notice as we play this forward, even though this Canadian storm track stays active, returning that moisture farther to the south is just not something baked into the models right now. And even as we look out there with a different model, this is now the European, or excuse me, the GFS, it too, for the week 2 time period, is increasing rainfall chances here while staying drier in the southern plains. It is likely biased way too dry in the southeast. That's a known problem with the GFS in summer. But possibility of seeing wetter than average conditions here. So that's the GFS, and this is the European. So you see how we're seeing some consistency in the models here in terms of precip. Lastly, no activity right now in the Atlantic, but we're moving toward August, and normally risk of tropical cyclone development picks up. We'll keep an eye on that. And the European heat wave we've been discussing, we're still in the middle of this. So very hot temperatures here throughout much of Central and Western Europe. And it's very dry there as well. If you get a chance, please read through the report. I put the new ECMWF weeklies, which give us the August 2022 outlook, and I kind of talk about some of the caveats. And later on this morning, I'll be releasing a new in-depth analysis where we'll talk about this. Appreciate the extra time you gave me this morning. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks.